Hello, I'm Grace Helbig here with 24 seconds of climate reality. Did you know renewable efficient energy is coming to a major city near you? Cities like Toronto, San Francisco, and Barcelona are leading the way in developing climate solutions and embracing renewables as the pathway to smart growth. And that's 24 seconds that can change the world.
What can change in a day? A solar array can power a community. A business can embrace clean technology. A nation can vote to reduce carbon pollution. Around the world, every day, people are taking action to fight climate change, enacting real solutions, and already seeing the benefits. Join us as we travel on a journey of progress around the world, exploring the path toward a better, cleaner future for all of us, and how you can help create it. What can change in a day? Our future. This is 24 Hours of Reality. 24 Reasons for Hope.
Welcome back to 24 Hours of Reality, 24 Reasons of Hope. I'm Sarah Backhouse, ready to begin our second to last featured Reason for Hope. It's been great hearing about the governments and leaders of countries and states that have joined the effort to build a more sustainable planet. But even more exciting news is that cities everywhere have become laboratories of change, and many are successfully using renewables and energy efficiency for smart growth. With smart growth, we can look forward to a cleaner and more sustainable future. And when I think of smart, I think of our next speaker. He's a man who's been key to raising awareness about climate change, and he's a big reason why so many different cultures, countries, and societies are taking action. Please welcome the chairman of the Climate Reality Project, Al Gore.
Thank you again, Sarah. And ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the 23rd and next to last of these 24 hours of reality. And I'm so excited to present the 23rd Reason for Hope. And during this hour, we're going to have the great privilege of listening to an interview of John Podesta, who is President Obama's climate advisor in the White House, former chief of staff for President Bill Clinton when I was in the White House some years back. And John Podesta is one of the most talented, most intelligent, most impressive public servants I've ever had the privilege to serve with. So I'm very excited he's here. And I want to give you a quick preview of the 24th and final hour of reality here. Lieutenant General Russell Honore, who is known as the Category 5 General, when he went in and took control of that chaotic situation in New Orleans after Hurricane Katrina. Everybody just kind of instinctively realized they had to stand at attention and do what he said because he has that air of authority. And he has been devoting his life of late, after his distinguished military career, to fighting on behalf of people who don't have the voice and political power to fight back against pollution. He has seen the effects of the climate crisis firsthand. I'm really excited about talking with him on this stage. Really, it is an honor to have him coming up in the next hour. But now, the 23rd Reason for Hope. We talked about state and regional governments in the last hour. So many exciting developments there, and especially important in those countries where the national politics seems to be paralyzed. But around the world, cities and their mayors have long been at the forefront of climate leadership. And their work continues today as many of the largest cities around the world take bold action on the climate crisis. This really is a powerful reason for hope. Cities from New York to Beijing, from Helsinki to Melbourne, cities have taken bold leadership positions on the climate crisis. And it really is stunning what some of these cities have done. Let's look at a few of the facts about what cities are doing to successfully use renewables and energy efficiency to build jobs and economic opportunity and to promote smart growth. And it is working, and the people like it because they know that it makes sense. So, first of all, to set the stage here, just in the last 4 years, we have seen an historic development without any precedent in the entire history of human civilization. For almost all of human history, the percentage of our human population living in cities was no more than 10 or 15% of the total. But in 2010, only 4 years ago, for the very first time in history, the majority of the people on Earth lived in cities. The urban population has been climbing dramatically, and the rural population as a percentage of the whole has been declining significantly. There are a lot of implications of this. Cities are actually pretty efficient places to live, and the environmental analysts who study these things are pretty much in agreement on that, particularly if the cities have leaders and citizenries that take hold of the opportunities to implement efficiency and sustainability standards and smart, efficient transportation systems and retrofitting of buildings and all the other things we're going to talk about during this hour. But the most important implication and why this is a reason for hope is that when we implement solutions to the climate crisis, they have got to be implemented in cities because that's where the majority of our people live now. This is truly an historic change in human history. Cities consume over 2/3 of the world's energy. So steps taken in cities obviously have a huge impact on our ability as a civilization to solve the climate crisis. And we are blessed, for whatever reason. I think it has to do with the changing nature of politics at the local versus the national level. We are blessed with a large group of visionary mayors around the world who have really taken bold initiatives and who have worked together to share ideas and to take the best ideas that are working in one city and apply them in other cities and in the opposite direction. So this is really a very positive development. Let's look at a few examples of what we're talking about. First of all, let me take a moment to compliment this C40 organization. This is a group of mayors of large cities that have banded together to do exactly the things I was just talking about. 69, they call it the C40, but 69 of these cities around the world have pledged to take bold action on climate. And you can see the ones in red are on the steering committee and the rest of them. As a group, they are really beginning to make a tremendous difference, and it really is a powerful reason for hope. Copenhagen, Denmark, has a very good, solid plan to become the first carbon neutral capital city in the world by 2025. Now, I say that with an asterisk or a caveat because Vatican City may beat them to it, and they've got two advantages. They're very small, and God is on their side. But leaving that aside, Copenhagen wants to take that title among the major capital cities. Stockholm has reduced its global warming emissions by 35% over the period of just 17 years. At the same time, they grew their economy in Stockholm by 41%. That is one of the highest growth rates in Europe. So they have some of the steepest reductions in global warming pollution while simultaneously having one of the highest economic growth rates. Now they have a carbon tax, and that's one of the reasons for it. And by the way, the carbon tax there became so popular that a conservative government felt like it was a good thing to make it even steeper. Now, of course, conservatives over there are a little bit different from conservatives in the U.S., but the politics are not all that different. So in Denmark, this city of Frederikshavn hopes to be powered completely by renewable energy by next year, and they're going to do it. Here in Helsinki, this is an example of something cities can do that really makes a difference. It's called district heating. They use the excess heat from the data center big data center under their main cathedral to pipe the hot air through these tunnels to give very low cost, sustainable heating to buildings throughout the center of the city. And a lot of people have never heard of this option known as district heating, but it is an incredibly efficient way for cities to reduce their consumption of power and remain comfortable in the winter at extremely low cost. In Germany, this is a city that already gets 100% of its energy from renewable sources. And many other cities are trying to emulate this example. Some of them are on the verge of doing it. In Southern Europe, in Barcelona, this is a good example of a city that requires solar hot water heaters on every structure. They have reduced their carbon intensity by 30% just in the last 14 years, and they have seen a 4,000% increase in the solar photovoltaic panels since the year 2000. Very inspiring work in a very beautiful city, unique city, as those of you who've seen Barcelona know. Okay, let's move to Asia. Singapore is often cited by many people as one of the best governed, best managed nations. It's a city-state nation, and of course, their history is quite inspiring. They were cut off from Malaysia, a lot of political turmoil, and they just pulled themselves up by their bootstraps, and they have created one of the most dynamic economies in the entire world. Well, they've decided that they're going to have these green buildings, the most efficient standards you can possibly have. And they're already to a point where 1/5 of all the square footage of real estate on the entire island meets the highest standards for green buildings. It's really quite impressive. So in Delhi, India, where there's a whole different situation, they need to have retrofits and the installation of better windows and lights and insulation and all of that. But they have themselves taken some very innovative and bold steps. And just this month, they introduced net metering. And you know what that is? What that means is people who put solar photovoltaic panels on their rooftops can use all the energy they want, and when they have some left over, they can sell it back into the grid and make money to offset the cost of their other expenses. And this has the effect of encouraging many more people to install solar panels. It is a very exciting and hopeful development. Here in the United States, the great city of Chicago has doubled its wind power use. It's opened the country's largest urban solar power plant. It's cut its carbon emissions already by 16%. It's put in place a really cool one-day permitting process for home solar, and it is encouraging the switch to renewables in a very powerful way. So in Los Angeles, I was present when the former mayor of Los Angeles, Mayor Villaraigosa, announced that Los Angeles will completely stop using any coal-based electricity by the year 2025. And they have put in place a step-by-step plan to achieve this goal. There's no doubt that they will. A smaller city, you wouldn't think of a place like Rockport, Missouri doing this, but they are the first 100% wind-powered town in the United States. And there are a lot of other towns and cities that want to follow their example. And with the cost coming down so rapidly, they're going to do it. Austin, Texas, great dynamic city. They're purchasing 700 megawatts of solar power, and they've announced that solar is the new default generation resource. And this makes sense economically. It also makes sense in establishing Austin as one of the leaders among cities in navigating this important transition to renewable energy. Okay, let's go to Australia and look at their two biggest cities. The city of Sydney, often described as one of the most beautiful cities in the world, has made plans to be 100% renewable by the year 2030. They've got a solid plan. I've looked at it. They're going to achieve this goal. And their neighbor and occasional rival for bragging rights, Melbourne, often labeled the most livable city in the world, by the way, also very beautiful. They plan to produce zero net emissions by the year 2020. So this is extremely encouraging news, because even at a time when some of the national governments, Australia among them, has political paralysis, of course it's the largest coal exporter in the world. It also happens to be ground zero for the biggest impacts on any nation of the climate crisis, but the coal industry has been throwing its weight around there. And yet, even with the paralysis at the national level, their cities and some of their regional governments, like the state of Victoria, I could have included them in the last hour, are really exercising dramatic leadership. Also, a lot of cities have joined this divestment movement. We are seeing all of these cities completely divest from fossil fuels, another way that cities are providing leadership. So if you are ever tempted in the least to feel discouraged about getting movement towards solutions for the climate crisis, and you've been reading about paralysis in the U.S. House of Representatives, turn to your cities and to your state governments, because you will find many leaders there who are providing bold, dynamic, and innovative leadership, reducing emissions and helping to solve the climate crisis. And that is definitely the 23rd reason for hope.
Very fascinating chat by Mr. Al Gore there, and hearing about all that makes me very proud of my current hometown of Los Angeles and former hometown of Sydney. Now, because the gains from renewables and energy efficiency are keeping towns and cities healthier and more sustainable. Over the course of the day, we've learned that there's a lot to be hopeful about, but the fact is there's a lot of work to do too. By coming together to make a change, we can get our planet back on a sustainable course. Tens of thousands of people have already taken the pledge to take a day of action this year. And right now, we're asking you to join them. So while you watch, pledge a day of climate action, whether it's voting, marching, or speaking out in your community. So what can change in a day, you might say? Well, by standing up with millions all together, what can't? Go to 24hoursofreality.org to dedicate a day to climate action. The impacts of climate change have quickly become visible and devastating. More drought, more flooding, and more severe storms are taking a toll on communities and economies around the world. As they do, it's more important than ever to understand that this challenge is not too great to address. In fact, solutions exist today. Let's take a look at the good news as a reminder that we can solve the climate crisis when we all act together.
Carbon dioxide has reached levels not seen in millions of years.
Climate change is here and getting worse.
Extreme weather has wrought havoc all over the world.
It's happening here and now.
We are running out of
damage
time.
by the water.
So there's been a lot of news about climate change. A lot of bad news, that is. And for the good news?
Right.
Well, there hasn't really been any. Until recently. Today we're facing the hard truth of climate change with the stubborn relentlessness of human will. And good news is happening.
Right.
And now for some good news.
Every day, new solutions are emerging. And not just wouldn't it be neat if solutions, real solutions. Our ability to convert sunshine into usable energy is rapidly becoming more advanced and accessible. Which is great because every hour the sun is sending enough raw energy to Earth to meet the entire world's energy demands for a full year. And the cost for clean energy technologies is dropping. Right now, the cost of solar energy is equal to or cheaper than fossil fuel energy in about 79 countries.
I didn't even know there were 79 countries.
And the electric car market is booming thanks to falling battery prices. And guess who likes that?
Who?
All types of people from around the world are starting to embrace renewable solutions. Schools are being powered by clean energy. Financial institutions are realizing dirty energy is a bad investment. And businesses are finding that going green is good for the bottom line. Which leads us to more good news. These solutions are actually working. It turns out that what is good for the environment is also good for the economy in many ways, like reducing poverty, spurring innovation and creating jobs. In 2013, nearly 6.5 million people were employed globally by the renewable energy industry.
Job creation. Brilliant.
Right. And while other industries are shrinking, renewables are growing as new technologies and capabilities are being rapidly discovered.
And here's some more great news!
This groundswell of support for renewable energy is forcing leaders and governments to take action. The two biggest carbon emitters, China and the US, have made moves to curb their carbon pollution and invest in cleaner energy technologies. And they're not alone. UN Secretary-General Ban Ki-moon is convening nations to forge a climate treaty that could unify the world to work together and lower our carbon emissions, transitioning us to a global clean energy society. We all know the bad news. Climate change is here. It's big, it's bad, and it's hurting us and our economies. But the important thing to know is that there is also good news. We have solutions here today, not dreams or wishes, real-world solutions that are ready to go and that are already saving money and improving lives.
Everyone's a winner.
If we rally around this good news and embrace solutions, we can forge the path to a clean energy future and make sure that progress is our new reality.
That's good news. Thank you for watching.
Now that's where we can be hopeful about the future. And it's only a matter of time until other leaders and governments see the steps being taken in smart cities and are encouraged to enlist in our fight. Here to explore the other technological advances and city policies that forward thinkers are adopting, please welcome the journalist known for her Alerta Verde environment segment, Vanessa Hawke, and her special guest, Counselor to the President and Chief of Staff under Clinton, policy expert John Podesta.
Thank you so much, Sarah. It's wonderful to be back, and I want to welcome Mr. Podesta from Washington, D.C. It's great to have you, Mr. Podesta. He's the Counselor to the President in this very important issue. First,
it's great to be with you, Vanessa.
Wonderful to see you. First, I would like to ask you about Mr. Obama's climate plan. He basically instructed the EPA to develop carbon pollution guidelines, and I would like for you to tell us a little bit, where are we standing on this?
Well, the Environmental Protection Agency has released proposed rules to cut carbon pollution from existing power plants by 30% by 2030. We're well on our way through the comment period for that, and the President's determined to get that job done, and that will be a very significant game changer in the United States to push us further along the path to clean energy. It's part of an overall plan that includes more renewables, reducing methane emissions, cutting back on the use of hydrofluorocarbons, which are so-called super pollutants that are 10,000 times more powerful than CO2. So we have all of our agencies are working to ensure that we get on a clean energy path.
I know this plan also includes steps to reduce emissions, obviously encourage developing renewable energy, but also you have to build resilience in the impacts of climate change. How important is this last part of the plan, Mr. Podesta?
Yeah, Vanessa, it's a very important point. I think that President Obama, for the first time really last year, really focused on this issue of resilience. You know, right now in Miami, the streets flood when it's not raining. In California is literally on fire and threatening cities like Sacramento and San Diego. So we need to build more resilience into both all across the country and all across the world. And I think that the focus on that includes, for example, we're about to release this afternoon, the Secretary of Housing and Urban Development is going to put out bids for $1 billion in a competition to build resilient projects to deal with the effects of climate change in communities across the country. The President will be at the Ban Ki-moon Summit next week, and he'll be making a number of announcements that put America squarely on side of building global resilience, trying to provide public goods to countries around the world, some of whom can't afford to build the kind of resilient tools they need to anticipate the effects of climate change and then begin to build strong societies to do it. So we're looking forward to that summit, and the President will have a lot to say about that question next week.
Many say that it's very important that the United States takes a leading role in this conversation next week. What do you think is going to happen with other countries when they see the United States coming on board?
Look, I think it's really the United States action more than just, you know, the appearances and what we're saying in New York. And in that regard, I think that the climate action plan that the President put forward, he made the commitment for the United States that we reduce our emissions by 17% by 2020. We're on our way to do that. The Clean Power Plan, the power plant rule that we just talked about will get us most of the way there, and the other activities I talked about will get us there, you know, all the way there. And then we got to think about the next decade and what we're going to do after that. And that's, I think, really what this UN summit's all about, which is to increase ambition across the world. The United States has to come forward with a very strong commitment in that regard, but we also need to see commitments from countries like China in particular, but you know, globally all the growing economies have to move towards cleaner energy, better health for their citizens, more investment in these new tools that will build stronger, more vibrant, better cities for their people.
Do you think the administration is going to have bipartisan support in this issue?
You know, I think we have bipartisan support around the country. Whether we have bipartisan support in the Congress is a different question. I think if you look at what the President's proposed, you see very strong majorities, including majorities of Republicans who support the ideas that the President's put forward. They want to see pollution reduced from power plants, carbon pollution and the other pollutants. It'll increase public health. It'll build a better future for their children. But when you get over to Congress, that's a different story. They're kind of locked down. They've been in league, I think, with the carbon polluters, with the coal and oil industry. Whether we can get any cooperation over the next couple of years remaining in the Obama administration, you know, I'm not certain. But the one thing I am certain about is that with or without them, we're going to get the job done for the American people. We have authority to move to reduce emissions from power plants, as I said, from vehicles. We've made very substantial gains in our auto efficiency, which saves consumer money. We're reducing emissions from methane, from land use, from municipal waste, and from municipal waste, and also from oil and gas development. So there's a lot of tools that we have under existing law and authorities, and we're going to get the job done. It'd be better and it'd be helpful if we can get some bipartisan support, but right now we don't see much coming from Capitol Hill. You look again across the country, you see Republican mayors in cities like Indianapolis, Orlando, Florida. They're doing great things. You see Republican governors getting on board, but the Congress is a little bit bogged down with the polluters, I have to say.
Mr. Podesta, being realistically, do you believe that we can move forward even if we don't have this support from Congress?
I think that eventually the Congress will come to support, clean energy ideas and attack climate change, frankly, because they have to. If you talk to governors out west that are dealing with a tremendous drought in the Colorado River Basin, or people across the country, average citizens, they know we got to come to grips with it, but we have to break the stranglehold of the polluters on, particularly in the Republican House of Representatives. And I think so. Eventually, I think they'll come on board. And right now, what we need to do is, as I said, is take the steps forward that we can, which are very, very substantial, and the president's committed to doing that. And I think that every agency of our government is doing it. We're doing it with public-private partnerships. Yesterday was with a group of many, many companies that made pledges to reduce their use of these super pollutant hydrofluorocarbons that will be the equivalent of taking 700 million metric tons of carbon dioxide out of the atmosphere. And, so it's companies stepping up, it's citizens stepping up, it's governors stepping up. Most importantly for this segment, it's mayors and local cities and activity that's going on at the subnational level that's happening. And eventually, I think the Congress, and particularly, as I said, the House of Representatives and the Republican leadership there is a lagging indicator, not a leading indicator. They're going to have to get on board because the American people know that we have to deal with this crisis, and they'll come to support it, and they do support it right now.
Mr. Podesta, year after year, we have seen this group of mayors coming together to sign an agreement due to the lack of a federal agreement. How is the administration working with mayors in the different cities?
Yes, that's a great point. The climate protection platform that they've put together through the U.S. Conference of Mayors was significant this year. It really calls for more transit, more LED lighting, more efficiency, more use of renewables. The Vice President in the earlier segment, Al Gore, my good friend, went through a number of cities, but across the country, in cities maybe that you wouldn't expect, like Houston, Texas, that's on track to use 50% renewables in their fleet. I mentioned Indianapolis, which is electrifying its municipal fleet, along with the more progressive cities in the country. Burlington, Vermont will have 100% renewable electricity soon. Seattle's made the pledge to be carbon neutral over some extended period of time. Not quite as quick as Vatican City, but they'll get there. And what we're doing in the administration is trying to work with them to support them to be flexible in the way we're using our regulation and authorities. Gina McCarthy, a number of our leading cabinet officers were down at the Conference of Mayors and worked with them to come up with the new pledge, and now scores of cities have signed on to that. And I think that it's a very significant action. And if you combine that with the states like California, the RGGI states in the northeast of the United States, the other states in the Pacific Northwest, I think we're all coming together to basically solve this problem, as Al Gore said.
Mr. Podesta, talking a little bit about in the international level, we have seen historically that there is success when different nations get involved and actually start to work towards environmental issues, like, for example, the Montreal Protocol. What do you think is going to happen now in the next UN Climate Summit?
Well, we're working really hard to make sure that it's successful. The president is personally deeply engaged. He's seeing the Indian Prime Minister at the end of this month. He's really made working on climate change and energy and clean energy a centerpiece of the U.S.-China bilateral relationship. Had a very successful meeting with President Xi Jinping last year in Sunnylands. He's looking forward to seeing him in November. But we've got to get our European colleagues and all these, particularly the developing economies, working towards these solutions so that we can have a successful outcome in Paris in 2015. I'm confident that the U.S. is going to do its part, and we've just got to, again, increase ambition across the board. And while we're doing that, by the way, we can't forget about the fact that there are 500 million people, maybe more, around the world who don't have access to modern energy, and we have to account for their needs with pathways that provide cleaner solutions. That's why the president's committed so much of his effort and attention to the Power Africa initiative to make sure that we provide resources to people that don't have access to modern energy, but do it in a cleaner way than we've done through the 19th and 20th century.
Precisely, talking about that, how important do you think it is that developing nations, many of them in South America, start developing, thinking about a clean energy future?
I think as I go around, particularly after Rio, the original Rio Summit, Rio Plus 20, and deal with my colleagues in Latin America, I think they have a strong commitment to sustainability, to developing new sustainable patterns of production and consumption. And I think some of our Latin colleagues are the strongest in ensuring that the world comes together to provide sustainability and a future that's going to be a bright one for our children and grandchildren. But they obviously have an important role to play. There's some big energy producers like Brazil. There's leadership on the coming from a new path towards sustainable development from Chile and Colombia and others. So I think they have a crucial role to play as actually the international system deals with two big challenges. One is this climate challenge we've been talking about this morning. The other is to pursue a development agenda that makes sure that extreme poverty is eliminated in the world. And we can do those two things together if we're thoughtful about it, if we marry the two agendas and we ensure that poverty reduction is done in a context that we're building sustainable economies and taking account of what we need to do to build more resilient economies as well, so that people are lifted up and can live in a world that's not overwhelmed by climate change.
Especially because these nations are actually the ones that are greatly affected because of climate change. I know for you it's very important, the future. What do you foresee after 2015, Mr. Podesta?
Well, look, I think we need a whole lot of innovation. We need the private sector to come into this game in a very, very big way to provide the new technologies that are going to be necessary to solve the climate crisis. I'll reference back to my comments about the meeting we held yesterday. I mean, companies across the value chain are developing, for example, new refrigerant chemicals that don't do damage to the and don't exacerbate the issues of climate change. We need to distribute those. We need to build the tools to more efficiently use energy in the building sector. The Vice President, again, talked a lot about the way we can change the way we heat and cool buildings, the way we produce transportation, all in the cause of reducing energy overall, using more clean energy, and definitely using less dirty energy. That's going to require a lot of innovation. It's going to require support from governments. It's going to require a lot, still additional R&D, but I think if the government, if the public, if the NGO sector and the private sector are working together, we can see that future happen.
On a personal level, I wanted to ask you, Mr. Podesta, you have been a long time in Washington. Why do you think there is so much opposition, knowing that climate change is a reality, that scientists are talking about this for a long time? Why do you think there is such a great opposition?
Yeah, it actually surprises me, and I have been here a long time. And just when I worked for President Clinton, there were Republicans who understood in Congress, who understood that climate was a challenge, including people like Senator McCain. But I think they've kind of been bullied by the Tea Party and by the right into a position where it's dangerous if you're a Republican these days to stand up and say we got to tackle this challenge, at least if you're in Congress. If you get out of Congress, if you look at what mayors are doing, what governors are doing, then you have a different kind of conversation. So I think we got to get back really just to some common sense. And in the end of the day, the voters will have a big say in making sure that happens. We've gotten to a place where the partisanship in Washington is particularly deep, but amongst the public, as I come back to this, amongst the public, I think people see this in a much more common sense way. They want clean air for their children. They want to make sure that we're taking care of the earth we've inherited and leave it in a good place. So whether you're talking about people who are coming from different sensibilities. They're united in the desire to have new solutions, clean energy solutions, better technology, and a cleaner future. And I think that if the people on, particularly our friends in the House of Representatives on the other side of the aisle, if they don't wake up to that, I think they won't be in power that long. So ultimately, the U.S. Democracy is pretty self-correcting, and I think we'll self-correct on this problem as well. But we need leadership, and I think that's what President Obama is trying to provide.
What would you say to the regular person that is at home watching this broadcast? What can they do to help?
Look, I think that a couple of things. One is that just learning more about the problem and the individual kind of lifestyle choices, including more use of renewable energy. There's all kinds of incentives now for rooftop solar, for more efficiency in the way people lead their own lives, to buy, from the choice of vehicles they choose to purchase, the use of more mass transit, being just observant about the way they're leading their lives and trying to do it in a more sustainable way is quite helpful. But I think they also can help move the country forward by supporting policies and by supporting, quite frankly, candidates who get this issue and want to respond to it.
Mr. Podesta, is this a personal issue for you? How important is this for you?
Well, I've gotten really into it probably when I met Al Gore in the White House, and I've been sustained. I was a champion of the environment when I worked for President Clinton. I started a think tank called the Center for American Progress that's picked it up, and that's one of the reasons that President Obama asked me to return to the White House to ensure that the climate action plan he put out last year was successfully implemented, and I think we're doing it. So, I have a couple of grandchildren in California, and hopefully more on the way for my other kids. And, I think about the world they're going to inherit, and I want to make sure that they live a life that is available to them the way mine was to me. I grew up in a kind of blue-collar neighborhood in Chicago. Environmentalism was really just about, could you breathe the air, was there a park to play in, etc. That's where people really live. And I think, was the water clean, etc. Could you swim in the lake? And, I think every family wants that for their children, their grandchildren. And I think that's what this fight ultimately is really about, is to provide that kind of future for future generations. Well, and I think we have a moral responsibility to do it.
I absolutely agree with you. Definitely, that's a wonderful motivation, and that's our responsibility to leave a better world for our kids. I truly appreciate your time and your expertise and everything that you are doing in Washington. We need more public officials like you, and I thank you so much for your time, Mr. Podesta.
Thanks, Vanessa, and I know you have Brad Whitford coming on, so tell him we miss him in the West Wing.
Will do. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Well, this is all for me. Now we go back to beautiful Sarah.
It's so good to hear that policy solutions based on renewables, increased efficiency and smart growth are being adopted in our cities. And the news that responsible and conservationist policies are coming to a city near them is catching people's imaginations. Let's go to the street and hear what people think of these important developments.
Hey everyone, it's Ian Somerhalder, your green man on the street. I am in New York City, where the United Nations is about to go into General Assembly, where this year there will be a massive focus on the issue of climate change. So I'm here to take a bite out of the green apple, to generally assemble and talk to people about a subject that always renews me: hope. Do you know anything about climate change?
Yeah, we've done it in geography at school.
You have? You know what it is, right, Mom?
Of course I do.
Have you guys experienced any of it in the UK?
Yes, a lot more flooding
A lot more
in the
flooding.
UK. A lot more, it's getting warmer, but it's
the
also
winters are
getting wetter.
And the
And
winters
the
are
winter's
getting
getting colder. Yeah, yeah.
What's the consensus in the UK? Like, I mean, is there things that you guys are doing, driving cleaner cars, anything that...
They're starting to have electric cars. There are a lot more here, but they're starting them in England. And I think we're trying to look after it a bit more, look after the world a bit more.
Do you know anything about solar energy?
They have solar panels on houses.
Yeah, do you know what actually works even in cloud cover like this?
No, I didn't know.
How do people get around in the UK?
Mainly cars.
Yeah?
But to be fair, we're going more walking and more biking, particularly in the cities, aren't we?
Yeah.
And since we've been in New York, we've only used the bike or walked.
Nice. Feels good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. Feels really good.
Makes you feel a lot better.
Yeah.
Are you guys pretty stoked on trying to figure out how to save your planet so you can live, be happier, be healthier?
I tell you what we do. We try to eat food that's not shipped for miles. So we try to eat local fruit and veg, don't we?
Yeah, it's
and
better
meat.
that way.
Yeah.
If you eat local stuff, then they don't have to use all the fuel to ship all those foods, right?
Yeah.
You have a cool mom. Hey, how are you? Hey, do you have a minute for Planet Earth? Hi. What's going on? What's your name?
From the Vampire Diaries.
I am, sometimes, during the week.
My name's Caitlin.
Caitlin, what do you do?
I'm a teacher.
You're a teacher?
Yep.
What ages?
First grade.
Early development?
Yep.
Critical thinking?
Yes.
What is climate change to you?
Climate change, global warming, things that are going wrong. Usually it's connected with a negative.
Right, but we got to make it a positive.
Yeah, we do.
So we have to do that.
Mhm.
So what can you do?
What can I do?
You have classrooms of first graders. You can do a lot.
Yeah, I'm gonna, help the kids learn how to take care of the environment.
Thank you. Laura, so you're from the UK, right?
I am, yes.
And I got your name wrong like 5 times. I went to
Yeah.
Nora, Dora, Bora. Okay, so do you know that enough solar energy reaches the Earth every hour to meet the needs of the entire population for a full year?
I didn't actually, not until today.
Crazy, right?
It is
And so, and I'm sure in the UK you guys have a lot of this, right? Cloud cover.
Yeah.
But you could still get solar energy through cloud cover.
Oh yeah, it's the rays come through the clouds, don't they, anyway,
Right.
so.
Would you put solar on your house?
Yeah, definitely,
Yeah?
yeah.
Do you know
Anything to
people
help
that
the
do?
environment.
Huh?
Anything to help the environment.
Okay, cool. And you'll tell other people that, right?
Yeah,
You'll share that
definitely.
information?
Definitely.
Promise?
Yeah, I
Pinky
promise.
swear.
I swear. Pinky swear.
Boom.
Boom.
You rock. So you're 14,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
And your sister or mom?
Mom.
Okay. So listen, climate change. You know a little bit about it, right?
Oh, yeah?
You know what's happening.
Yeah.
Right? So what are you doing about it?
I was in the climate club at my school.
Was or are?
Well, I left my school, so.
Oh, you did?
Yeah. So.
What did the climate club do?
We worked on educating the rest of the school about
cool is that?
Very cool.
about climate change because it went from preschool through 8th grade. So a lot of the younger kids didn't know about climate change and that kind of thing. So we taught them about climate change, and we made dots, so do one thing. So everybody wrote down one resolution they had to help the climate.
And then it was also action based, right? It made people. You helped them understand to go out and just do something. It wasn't just about awareness.
Yes.
Wouldn't you hope that more kids had access to that kind of education?
Yeah, I would. I think that educating people about climate awareness is one of the first steps you can take.
Can you please be active in that and like really spread that throughout the country?
Sure.
Help me out.
Okay.
Because I don't sleep very much at night and I'm really busy doing this stuff. Can you help me?
Yeah, we'll do.
You guys rock, man. Every movement has its moment. This is ours. So I'm dedicating a day to do my part. I'm dedicating a day to make a difference. So come join me. Go to 24hoursofreality.org and help me spread the word by hashtagging the word climate hope.
We've been learning today about exciting advances in renewable energy, but meanwhile, the fact is big oil is still a massive and problematic emitter of carbon pollution. In this next segment from millennial filmmaker Vanessa Black, we travel to the Gulf of Mexico to take a closer look at the industry and to investigate whether the major oil producers are truly committed to cleaning up their environmental impact. After all, if you look at their ads, they talk a lot about how they're becoming cleaner and greener. We know they're spending millions of dollars on these ads, but how much are they spending on actually cleaning up their product so it doesn't damage our environment? As Valissa learns in her interviews, if you talk to the people who live in the Gulf and rely on its waters to make a living, they tell a very different, very personal story of big oil. Are these companies really doing all they can to avoid a catastrophic spill of carbon pollution into the atmosphere? Or is it just a lot of hot air? Let's take a closer look.
BP had two big goals: help the Gulf recover and learn from what happened so we could be a better, safer energy company.
Using algae to form biofuels, we're not competing with the food supply.
At Chevron, if we can't do it right, we won't do it at all.
If you were to watch TV these days, you'd think big oil companies are starting to clean up their act by focusing on clean energy. In 2012, 94% of carbon emissions in the US came from burning fossil fuels. According to the EPA, 1 barrel of carbon-based crude oil will produce an average of 0.43 metric tons of CO2 emissions when burned. That's almost half of a typical 2-story house.
You turn on the TV and you see an ad and you see, oh, everything's great and everything is so wonderful. And when you spend hundreds of millions of dollars on that advertising campaign, of course people believe it.
What do they want us to see? And what is the reality? And why would they want us to think something different than what's really going on? In this episode of Youth Fuel, we travel to Texas and Louisiana to investigate big oil and their green marketing. I'm Vanessa Black. I'm a filmmaker and an activist, and I'm traveling around America to find out more about our biggest polluters and climate change deniers. We know the oil industry is a major contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and climate change. However, if you look at their advertising, they spend a lot of energy trying to convince us to think otherwise.
At Shell, we are developing more efficient fuels that can help us to get the most from our energy resources.
The place where I want to be.
What do you think of the company BP?
BP? From what I've heard about it, that they're a clean, like, save the earth type of company when it comes to chemicals and gas and all that stuff.
But the reality is, Chevron, Shell, ExxonMobil, and BP are oil companies that pump carbon pollution into the atmosphere and endanger life on our planet, and make billions of dollars in profit while doing so. So why is it that people think these companies are environmentally friendly? It's called greenwashing. Disinformation to present an eco-friendly, responsible public image. Many of us remember the Exxon Valdez spill in Alaska, but more recently, we remember the BP oil spill in 2010.
This is the biggest man-made disaster that directly affects one of the most productive estuaries in the world.
It doesn't seem like 25 years after the Exxon Valdez disaster that we've gotten any better ways to clean up oil when it's spilling. You know, we're drilling deeper and deeper, but when it comes to dealing with a catastrophe like this, we haven't improved the technologies.
Deepwater Horizon was the largest accidental marine oil spill in petroleum industry's history, and more than 200 million gallons of crude oil is estimated to have been pumped into the Gulf over the course of 87 days. A federal court ruling in September of this year found BP was grossly negligent, and they could face additional billions in fines. We sat down with the locals to see how it's costing them.
I mean, we're still seeing instances where oil is washing ashore. There's still tar balls out there. You know, so this situation, this dilemma that we're in, it isn't long and gone, it's still happening.
BP released this statement on their website. Field notes from 2010, 2011, and 2012 do not document any visibly oiled oyster beds.
Water quality is okay. In reference to the health of the production and the small oysters, that's not there. So if BP's trying to claim that everything's fine, it's bullshit.
They got enough money to spend, they can paint their own picture the way that they want to. You know, so as far as being friendly to the environment, I mean, we're part of the environment and they certainly haven't been friendly to us.
Dirty stories like this are radically different than the rosy depictions we see in their advertisements.
Outside of the Gulf, a lot of people think that BP is an environmentally friendly company.
That's news to me. First off, I didn't even know that.
BP needs to put their money where their mouth is and actually put that money towards restoring the Gulf instead of, you know, spending millions and, you know, maybe even tens, hundreds of millions on PR efforts.
Even knowing all the facts about pollution, top oil companies seem to be spending more money on commercials about renewables rather than following through with the ads that they are saying. In 2010, Chevron launched their We Agree campaign, describing Chevron's leadership in development of renewable energy. However, the company is now dialing down the program's funds and have encouraged staffers to look for jobs elsewhere. Shell ran a feel-good ad called Let's Go, implying their investments in green technology. But the fact is they're devastating the planet by oil drilling and refining. We called BP to set up an interview.
I've done a lot of research on your sustainability, and I would love to just set up a call.
But they declined to be on camera. After some email correspondence, they wouldn't answer all of our questions, including the ones we wanted answered the most.
If we're going to continue to, push the boundaries when it comes to drilling, then we also need to invest in safety and invest in research to make sure that these things can be done without destroying the environment, without, impacting our communities.
We're a 138-year-old business, a fifth-generation family operation. And I want my son to be able to do it.
We won't be fooled by oil's green ads, and we won't be tricked into believing that if we can't see it, it's not there. Just like the Gulf might look like it's back to normal, there are in fact environmental impacts happening daily that you do not see. When it comes to climate change, harmful pollution isn't always visible. Understanding these impacts is the first step for a cleaner future. Join the growing movement to solve the climate crisis and fuel a cleaner future.
There's still more to come on 24 Hours of Reality, including another of former Vice President and Climate Reality Project founder Al Gore's reasons for hope, a conversation with Lieutenant General Russell Honore, and music from Linkin Park. You can see all the highlights from 24 Hours of Reality starting later today at 24hoursofreality.org. Now, even a child can understand that there's a lot to lose when it comes to climate change. In fact, the young people of the world are the best ones positioned to ask some tough questions on the issue. After all, they're the ones with the most at stake. As the United Nations prepares to convene a special meeting of the world's leaders to collaborate on negotiating a new agreement that can ensure a clean energy future, the Climate Reality Project thought it would be the perfect time to invite young people of the world to ask their nation's leaders the climate questions on their mind. Now, what's amazing is how simple this complex issue can become when you see it through a child's eyes. And after viewing this montage of impressive youth from around the world, we'll see a single submission from a future climate leader from the United Kingdom.
My name's Amy Farrett and I live in England.
Hi, I'm Aiden and I'm from Hong Kong.
Hi, my name's Molly and I live in Malaysia.
Hi, I am Mika from South Africa.
I live in Croatia.
I live in Auckland, New Zealand.
And I'm from Brazil.
Brazil.
From South Africa.
From France. From the United States.
United States.
From Mongolia.
From Malaysia.
From Dubai.
From Romania.
From Mexico City.
From the Philippines. From India.
From India.
Western Australia.
So my question for all world leaders is this.
And my question to the government bodies is...
My question to the UN is...
And I guess the first thing I want to say...
The first question I want to ask...
My question is... My question...
My question...
My question...
My question...
I'd like to question...
I would like to ask...
I'm asking members of the UN...
Why do you sit here and pretend?
Why are we letting companies freely pollute the atmosphere?
Why are you allowing the palm oil industry to destroy Malaysian rainforests?
Why do global economic policies consistently stimulate and encourage reliance on burning fossil fuels?
Why is there no more emphasis on developing a generation who can take responsibility for the causes of climate change?
Why, in South Africa, a country overflowing with sunlight, don't we use solar panels?
Why not countries with similar consumption formulate region-specific laws and targets for the next decade?
Why not to put pressure on these companies to change their methods?
Why don't governments start creating sustainable modes of transport?
Para preservar o bem mais precioso que existe no planeta.
Why not change our focus, leave animosity and hatred and competition behind?
Why not incentivize people to use energy more efficiently?
Why not invest more resources in communities?
Why not strive to reduce carbon emissions?
Everyone has a stake in what happens to our planet.
The global problem requires a global solution.
It's time to act. So what are you waiting for?
My name's Esme and I'm from London in the UK. At every climate summit in the last 10 years, countries and their respective governments have struggled to come to an agreement on climate change for fear of compromising their own economies. And what often develops is a blame game, where these governments don't look at their own individual responsibility, but what other countries have done. So I asked the UN, why do you attempt to get countries to agree to carbon emission cuts alone and leave these pledges so open to interpretation? Why not get companies and individuals to submit sustainable solutions and ensure countries pledge to implement them? thus enabling greater investment in R&D and significantly enlarging the global market for green business, thus not compromising any country's economy, but improving it. Give our generation not just a voice, but a future. Thank you.
After seeing that, it looks like people in cities across the globe are coming around to taking action against climate change, especially when they see smarter grids, better services and sustainable power supplies. And that passion and commitment coming from the people in support of renewables and energy efficiency is going to be a big driver of change. But perhaps the biggest reason for hope is coming up in our final hour. Stay with us for the hour-long finale of the Climate Reality Project's 24 Hours of Reality, 24 Reasons for Hope. And don't forget to pledge a day of climate action if you haven't already. In the next final hour, we'll be joined by the recipient of the Distinguished Service Medal and expert in disaster response, Lieutenant General Russell Honoré, and once again by Al Gore for a question and answer panel and an exclusive send-off message. We'll also be hearing some very exciting breaking global news about the future of clean energy and our global climate. See you on the other side for the finale, and don't forget to do your part. You can make a world of difference. Go to 24hoursofreality.org and dedicate a day to climate action.